Hi, I'm Milena, booktuber, bookstore owner and classics lover, and welcome to a bit of a mashup of a video. I want to talk to you about different things. About the books I finished in May, about the books I'm currently reading, which are two, I'll get to that in a minute, about my TBR for June, and I have received some bookish gifts, which I would like to unpack with you today. Currently, I have only a few days left to finish the Women's Prize books I want to read before the winner is announced, which is a little bit stressful, I'm not going to lie. I have given up on some of the books of the long list, at least for now, so that I will for sure read the winner. I have one book for the non-fiction to go and 2.5 for the fiction, so I think it's doable, but I definitely need to keep reading very actively. For May, I finished Somewhere Else for the fiction list, Raising Hair for the non-fiction list, The Ministry of Time for the fiction list, and Fundamentally also for the fiction list. I just finished Agent So I'll talk to you about that, and I think that will be my final Women's Prize episode. I've been using the story graph recently. The last couple of months I switched from Goodreads. I don't know why I delayed it this long. I have zero regrets, it's great. And I also have these fun stats. So it says that I read 8 books in May. My main moods was emotional, which is always the case, but adventurous and mysterious were also very big, which is not usually the case. I do think that when I read for prizes, you can definitely see that my reading changes from my personal taste towards what kind of prize I'm reading. So when you get things like adventurous and mysterious, it's not necessarily things I would gravitate towards. Reflective and informative are things that I often read. 25% non-fiction, purely because of the Women's Prize, and my main genre is romance, literary and historical, which is typical me, to be honest. And then fantasy is also quite high, which is also kind of me, but fantasy more as a subgenre, I think. Talking about one of the fantasies, I read The Sirens by Amelia Hart for the Paws and Pages book club. I think I like this. Surprisingly, I like this more than Wayward, which doesn't always seem to be the case with people, because this doesn't have the typical 3 generation POVs. The way the POV is built in this book is a little bit more original than the standard 3 generational women POV, which, don't get me wrong, I do love, but I can get a little bit tired of it. So here we follow a current day woman who has an incident at university, and then she travels towards her sister to get help. We also follow a group of British women who are put on a ship towards Australia because they have done illegal things. They are criminals, but very often petty criminals, but they are exported to Australia to mostly just become wives and servants to the people already living there. And then we also have a big theme of water. I'm not gonna go into this too much because the 22nd of June we do have a live show for this one, and I'm very interested to talk about the themes of the ocean, femininity, feminism. It's all very interesting in this book. I will have to say, I started reading this with Mary during some reading sprints, and I told her like 50 pages in that I knew the plot. And there are a lot of twisty turny things in this plot, and like unfortunately, I guessed it, like all, which I wonder if everyone has that, or if I was just lucky, or if this book is very predictable. I'm not sure, but I was hoping for some reveals that I did not see coming. But I do think that the plot devices used in this book have been used so many times by other people, because how else can I so easily guess this? That was a little bit disappointing. I think I ended up giving this like a low 4. I did race through it. It was so enjoyable and readable. So if you're in a bit of a reading slump, like Amelia Hart generally is an author, I think Wayward as well, great books if you're in a reading slump. Would highly recommend. But if you're looking for maybe more depth, complex historical fiction, or magical historical fiction, this book definitely isn't for you. It was a great book club pick because we initially had the live show on the 1st of June and I started last minute, and it was not difficult at all to finish it. Like another historical or maybe more fairy tale fantasy I read is Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. I read the other book with the other myth, also by Naomi Novik. I don't know the name anymore, but I read it as well, and I figured I might as well listen to the other one as a book before bed. I didn't like it as much as the other one. We have 3 perspectives in a very wintry, you know those creatures from Game of Thrones? Over the Wall. I don't know what they're called anymore, but that is kind of the vibe it had, but a lot more fairy tale-esque and romantic. And well, I think this book had so much potential because the plot was very engaging, the world building was great, it was very much showing, not telling, which I enjoyed a lot. The main character is a moneylender, or her father is, but her father is not at all strict, so they have a lot of financial issues, and then she decides to do her father's work. She's a very interesting character. I think she was called Miriam. And then we have 2 more characters characters that are just too similar in their personality, not in their circumstance, but in their personality. And we got these 3 POVs that were just too much. If we had 2 POVs, so if these 2 characters were merged together somehow, I think this would have been a better book, because now we had kind of 2 romances at the same time later in the book that were just so similar. It didn't really have any added value to have multiple characters. I mean, they all had a purpose and a plot, but I felt like it was too much of the same and it was too cluttered, this book overall. I did enjoy this, but I think it was too complicated for what it needed to be. If Naomi Novik is an author that interests you in a fairy tale way, because I think she also wrote some dark academia stuff, I would definitely recommend the first of which I don't remember the name. And then a moment for one of my favorite new contemporary romances. I get swept off my feet by a romance very easily, but I really needed this after the disappointment that was the most recent Emily Henry. This is Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. I think I'm saying this right. I talked about it a little bit in my most recent vlog. This is about 2 characters who both have a limb difference and they meet at Halloween. They are both dressed as the pirates and they make jokes about who is the better pirate, and then they show each other their limb differences, and it's just such an amazing meet cute, and sparks are flying between them on Halloween and they have a one-night stand, which results into an accidental pregnancy. Doesn't sound like a romance a lot of people want to read. I agree, like pregnancy and romance is like a hard no for me usually, but the author kind of explained her motivation and her motherhood as a disabled mother. It was also discussed that the female main character really contemplated all of her options and that it was a conscious decision to move forward. And I did enjoy that, because sometimes I feel like we have a pregnancy in a romance and then just, oh no, I'm pregnant, and that's the end of it. And I think that doesn't reflect the lived experience of a lot of women. So I did really enjoy that in this book. And then we had some forced proximity, some yearning, and of course they had like this really good reason to keep a good relationship, a good platonic relationship between them, because of course they had this child that they both wanted to be involved in. And I think with contemporary romance sometimes, or romance in general, the author creates problems that aren't really problems. I think being good co-parents is such a real and important reason for certain behaviors, so that is kind of why it worked. It wasn't too much about the pregnancy, except for when it came to their behavior and to them wanting to be good co-parent in the future. This book was like honestly funny and honestly kicking my feet, screaming out loud, read it in 2 days. The writing was just so great in this book. I think only when the tropes don't really work for you, you still love the book if the writing is just amazing. I feel like the female main character was a little bit bland, but the male main character, he really wasn't. He was such a cinnamon bun. I love him. I love the way that disability was both discussed and sometimes not at all, when I think more ableist writers would want to exploit certain things from their disabled characters, and this was definitely from an own voice's point of view, which I think gives such a very different kind of books. I always think about the film, it's a book written by Jojo Mays, I think, whatever. That film always made me uncomfortable, but I found it hard to pinpoint why, and I think if you read own voices, own disabled voices, you understand why it makes you uncomfortable. When non-disabled authors exploit certain parts of disability from their disabled characters for I feel like emotion, but also not at all reflecting the lived experience of a disabled person. So yes, great own voices book. I bought some of her other books as well because I cannot wait. I don't think she generally writes disabled characters. She approaches this as a very diverse thing where some are and some aren't. I'm excited for that. A very small ad break for my own small business. There is a new collection at Milena's Bookshop, which includes these notebooks. We have a Jane Austen one, Lord of the Rings one, and a non-fiction one with a room of its own. So these are softcover notebooks. You can get them separately. You can get them as a set, both on milenasbookshop.nl and on Etsy. If you live outside of the European Union, I would recommend checking out Etsy because the shipping is generally lower there. So we have a vintage cover, quote, cute little illustrations, a little text, original text from the book, and a little bio on authors or characters. So if you would like to support a small bookish business, then it would be awesome if you would check these out. Thank you so much. Back to the video. So those were kind of the books I've not discussed at all in other videos. And then I am currently reading All Fours by Miranda July, which is an experience. experience. Recently my experience with the Women's Prize is that I really enjoy the plot, but I just hate the writing. This one I kind of enjoy both, but I am remembering things from this book I do not want stuck in my head. If you've read this, I think you know what I'm talking about. About a young mom, she's in her mid-40s, but I think she had one child a little bit later. She's married and she decides she wants to treat herself, to some time to herself, so she's going to drive cross country to New York City, where she has meetings with friends and everything. She is a like low-key famous person, and then she decides not to do that and she stays in a hotel very close to her actual home, or a motel, where she meets different people, and she has mostly just a mental journey of her own sexuality, and it's interesting and uncomfortable, but then also interesting. Like, this is the kind of book that I want to read because I'm so curious, but it kind of feels like the author and I have this secret and no one else is supposed to read this. It is like reading someone's diary that actually you're not supposed to read. I am enjoying the writing, like for once with the Women's Prize, the writing isn't annoying the shit out of me, so that's good. And then I am also a little over halfway through of Letters to Milena by Kafka. This was on my May TBR, but I needed to catch up with the Women's Prize, so I've put it away for now. And gosh, I'm not like sure how I feel about this, because it is romantic, but it's also like really not romantic. So Franz Kafka and Milena Reads didn't initially meet. So Milena Reads was translating some of his work that he wrote in German into Czech, and they started corresponding about the translation, but soon it became way more personal, and I'm not sure if they started falling in love. That is really hard to say because you only get Kafka's letters and not Milena's letters. Begs the question how inappropriate his letters are, because Milena is married, he isn't, but I think he is engaged to someone. So basically their letters are in a way damn cheating, but also not. It is very clear that Kafka starts to deeply fall in love with her. There's also a big age gap between them, which I think is maybe a bit different in this time, which is 1920. But their correspondence is so intense because they write letters to each other every day. I thought we would follow them throughout multiple years, but this is just the 1 year, and they write so many long, intense letters to each other. Or at least Kafka to Milena. I don't know what Milena wrote back. I don't know if those letters are like in existence or if those were destroyed. I have absolutely no idea. I do think that Milena Reads' life is very interesting because she did a lot during the Second World War. Kafka died soon after these letters were written. Milena Reads was a writer and a journalist in her own right. Like, again, they met because she was translating his work. But she's often like viewed as the muse of Kafka, which of course is so icky, and therefore I also find it a little bit icky to only read his letters. He stays vague, but it's clear that he's in love with her, and they do meet, and I think they had a physical relationship when they met, but it's never really mentioned. And I don't know how you can really look at the level of creepiness of these letters without having her letters as well, because if she very much feels the same way, is very in love and romantic towards him, then there's nothing really wrong with the way he writes. But if she doesn't give him any romantic encouragement, then it's creepy. But again, he repeats things she sometimes writes, and then it's very clear that she's in love with him. I do know that they didn't end up together because she didn't want to leave her husband, which I think eventually her husband leaves her. A lot of tragedy. I mean, the biggest tragedy I think is that Milena Reads died in a concentration camp. I do want to keep on reading this, but I feel like if you want to read this as a narrative, the fact that you don't have Milena's letters makes it that it doesn't really have that clear narrative. But the writing is still beautiful. Like, he says beautiful things like this. You see, as far as I'm concerned, what's happening is incredible. My world is collapsing, my world is rebuilding itself. Wait and see how you, meaning me, survive it all. And he is very self-deprecating as well. He says things like, I don't dare offer you my hand, my dirty, twitching, claw-like, fidgety, unsteady, hot cold hand. And then later, I feel like the first letter, also if you're not interested in this, feel free to skip to the next chapter. Let's see, the first letter is from April 1920, and then we are in July 1920. And he says, I like to have all the time there is, just for you, for thinking about you, for breathing in you. And of course I read these quotes to my husband with a sensation of why don't you? Kafka very much knows that she's not going to leave her husband and that what he desperately wants is not going to happen. And he says things like, what an easy life it will be when we're together. I'm a fool to write about it. So he knows it's not going to happen. I have googled how their relationship ends because this doesn't really read like a narrative, so I just wanted to know. Ooh, I'm also reading the current India Houghton, of which I have said the title wrong many times. But this is about a marriage of convenience, but of course they're in love. They're geographers in a magical world, so there's a lot of dangerous magic. The world building doesn't really matter. I don't think it ever really does with India Houghton. I've not read the first book in the series, so maybe there's a lot of world building in the first series that you can just apply in the second book or in the first book, not series. I apologize. But yeah, the yearning between these two is like so good and so, I want to say Victorian. This is very late Victorian. It's set in 1890, but there's just a scene with just him adjusting her stocking, and it's like this amazing experience for both of them, full of yearning and sexual tension. And I love it when historical books just go crazy on just the slightest touch. While in a contemporary setting that would be like nothing special at all. I'm enjoying that. I've almost finished it, and I think I'll use that for the buzzwordathon for May. I'm a little bit behind because I intended to use this one because the prompt is use the word to. But this book also has the word to in it, and I will definitely finish it before. And the other prompt for the buzzwordathon was a book with eyes, which fundamentally works for. The prompts for June are celestial elements on the cover, and I think if I have the time I'm going to read Parable of the Tenants because it's been years since I read the first book by Octavia E. Butler in this series. And I think, I mean, this is light or like stars, I'm not entirely sure, but I do know that the original cover has like a big moon on it, so it is celestial. I'm going to count it. This one was on my priority TBR. I do remember the first book quite well, but I might watch a video or read a summary to make sure I'm really caught up, and then I'll finally finish the series. And for the other prompt, it is memory words like remember, forget, know. And I have such a hard time picking a book for this prompt. I really tried, but the only thing I could really find that interested me a bit is an Agatha Christie. And it is something about elephants remember. And I do like listening to an Agatha Christie. So if you are an Agatha Christie expert, would you recommend this one? Is it any good? Or if you have any book recommendations that fit that prompt, I would love it because I'm having a really hard time finding something. I'll discuss my June TBR in a little bit, but first we have some gifts to unpack. My dad went to Germany with his friends. He went to Munich, like a city trip, with his book club friends, which I think is so cute. But he brought all of us a little gift, and he brought me something from a bookstore, some book goodies. I unpacked most of it, but it was weeks ago, so I don't exactly remember. But oh, this is it's out of its package, but this is like a little hanger, a little ribbon with a Jane Austen. I don't think it's a bookmark, but I think you can just add this to your book as a decoration. I think it's a book decoration. Of course, the explanation is in German. Lesenbachten. Oh yeah, you can see the little image, so you can use it as a decoration for your book. You can like add this ribbon to your book, so I'll definitely do that the next time I read anything Jane Austen-esque. I think it's really cute. And he also got me this Jane Austen bookmark. Let's open it up. And it says, if a book is well written, I always find it too short. And it has this little ribbon. I do have other bookmarks from this brand, and they're so sturdy. I really like them. And he got me, I think from the same line, some lovely sticky notes, which are super duper cute. Let's get them out of the plastic so you can actually see. Oh, some of them have gold foiling on them. That is so fancy. I mean, clearly this one would have to be my favorite. I mean, how cute is that? And I also really like this one. This is going to be really helpful for book club books. This is just so cute. So thank you so much, Dad. Alright, and then I got this from one of you, Mimi. Thank you so much for treating me. There were actually 2 tote bags in this one, but the other tote bag I have been using a lot because the fabric is so sturdy. I really love it. The tote bag is getting a lot of good use. And this is a tote bag from their local bookshop I think is so freaking cute. I think a tote bag is always something I want when I'm at an indie bookshop. Most of the indie bookshops I go to, I think I have all their tote bags. And I know that tote bags are a way of fast fashion, but like I use them a lot for like grocery shopping, and I keep some in my bike, in my car, to always prevent having to buy like bags at Big Change or grocery stores. So this is from Schuler Books. I think it's really cool to have a tote bag from an indie bookshop I'll never be able to go to. She got me a really sweet handwritten note and 2 of these beautiful Macmillan editions. These are I think second hand, and I'm just in love with this. I have never seen this edition of Goblin Market and Other Poems by Christina Rossetti. I have at least read the Goblin Market, but I'm not sure I've read more than this. But this edition also has... I immediately remember the poem when I read this. But yeah, I found it very interesting. I definitely want to reread it, especially now that I have illustrations to go with it, because it is in the Little Black Classics collection, but that one of course does not have illustrations. And then Hamlet by Shakespeare, which I have a lot of Shakespeare in this edition, and I think it's absolutely gorgeous. And then this American edition that I've never seen in a bookshop of Pandora's Jar by Natalie Haynes. I think this edition has something really special, and I do think it reflects what it's about a little bit better than the British covers, which is usually the ones I buy, of course, because I live in the Netherlands. And they kind of give the vibe that you're gonna read fiction, but I think it's much more clear that this is non-fiction. So I think it reflects what the book is actually about so much better. Thank you so much for your generosity. I was like, of course, flabbergasted. And then something I've not opened yet, but I think this is so cute. So this is a stack of cards that says Vintage Cottage Core. That's like my vibe. It's unwrapped. Okay, so let's open it. Wait, that's so cute. It has sticky tabs, so you can, I think, hang it on your wall. Oh, I've never seen that. I've literally never seen that in any package. Do we have this little owl? Oh, it's like literally for decoration, because it's not a standard postcard. It has like these beautiful bags to it. That's so cute. This is so lovely. Like, it's definitely cottagecore. Very magical patterns. I feel like it's perfect for a gallery wall. Really, really cute. Thank you so much, Mimi. It's like perfect if I want to decorate, use like colors, inspiration. This is like a bundle of creativity. So thank you so much. It feels crazy to me that someone goes out shopping and thinks of me. I think it's just... that's so sweet. Thank you. Yeah, like bookish gifts are the best gifts, are they not? Yeah, thank you so much to Mimi and to my dad for getting these things for me. It's really, really lovely. Having said that, I do need to talk to you about my June TBR. So as I discussed, Parable of the Talents by Octavia E. Butler. I will probably finish... I don't know if I'll finish this. It's definitely not my first priority to finish Letters to Milena, but it's, you know, a current read. For the Women's Prize, I still need to read The Story of a Heart, which I just downloaded the audiobook for, so that's great. I have The Safekeep by Jaël van der Wouden, Good Girl by Aria Aber. I think that's it, right? Yeah, I think that's it. And of course, I'm still reading the Miranda July book. And then I will probably listen to the Agatha Christie for the buzzwordathon prompt. But yeah, we're already a few days into June when I'm filming this, so I'm not entirely sure. I did see that I get some ALCs from Libor FM, so some early copies, and the, like, I don't know if it's a sequel, but it's set in the same world as The Spell Shop is available. So I think I'll listen to that. That's gonna be a lot of fun. Maybe also a romance. I feel like my monthly romance should probably be the Olivia date I have been eyeing for a long time, which is called At First Bite, which is a roommate romance, I think, or they live in the same building. Nevertheless, sounds really fun. I did also want to start Soude Française because it just really fits with the kind of books I'm reading. Somehow I'm reading a lot of books set in the early 20th century in Eastern Europe, which Agent Zoe was. Somewhere else was set during that time. Letters to Milena is set that place and time. I think there was another book, and this is set in France, but it's written by a Ukrainian author, and it's also Second World War. I think it just fits. I wouldn't say I get obsessed with certain like niche things, but I can get a bit of a hyper focus of interest. So once I'm in it, I kind of really enjoy it, and I am constantly Googling, trying to teach myself things. Something my brain needs is that I'm always learning things. I'm just so curious about everything that it helps to dial it down to a certain period in time and a certain place. Learn as much as I can about it. And it's really fun. Like early 20th century Eastern Europe wasn't something I picked, but I think it's a bit of a theme in the Women's Prize this year. So it kind of just all worked out, and then I randomly picked this because it fitted the buzzwordathon. So it all kind of came together. Thank you so much for listening to my ramblings. I am going to film a book haul next because I asked you on Instagram which one you wanted, and it was close to 50-50. I'm not sure what it is right now, but I felt like this video was time sensitive and a book haul is not. So I'll be filming a book haul, and I will see you with the book haul very, very soon. Bye!